Welcome to another episode of a Wild Time Podcast, MMA edition. If you guys haven't subscribed and liked, please go do that now because listen, we just had Guy Mesger on. We just had Fred Edish on from UFC 2. And tonight, we are going to have a powerhouse of a man. Ladies and gentlemen, before the H-bomb, there was the Brad Kohler blockbuster right hand. Listen, standing 5'5", weighing in at 240 pounds, a man that could dislocate your jaw, take you to the ground and pound you, put you out, and from the old school, a man with the most sick knockout that you will ever see, and a journeyman, a man that started from the end and fought way up into his career. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest tonight, Brad Kohler.
Adam, thank you so much.
Brad, how's it going, my man?
Good. Are you playing the intro song?
Oh, I had it. Yeah, I had it going. Zach Williams.
Go ahead. You want? Yeah, let's hear it, man. My favorite song.
Oh, it's a good one. Great meaning behind it, man. Every one of us could actually listen to that song and get something from it.
Which song is that?
That, my friend, is Fear is a Liar, actually.
Oh, yeah, you got the wrong song.
Yeah, Shane Breaker.
This is Zach Williams.
Right here.
Yeah, but listen, I'm 5'8".
5'8"?
Yes.
I'm going to have to do my homework a little better on that.
5'7" on a bad day, but yeah. 5'5", wow.
You know, like I was saying, you have been, you were there in the dark ages of the UFC, but you were there in bare knuckle and MMA before the UFC, actually. So let's just shoot straight, man. How did you get started in mixed martial arts? Because I've done, grew up watching you, so I'm interested just to see how it all started for you.
Well, I got into it after the UFC started in 2005 in Colorado, and I was trained with Mark Coleman back then and Kevin Randleman, and so we were wrestling, trying to, of course, find glory in international competition between freestyle and Greco-Roman, and it just kind of came to us at the end of our 1996 career in wrestling, where we're just not passionate about it anymore, though we love the sport, and I actually, me and Mark just got done training one night, and we were out jogging, actually, and we decided, hey, let's go meet up with a couple of these Ohio State football players real quick and grab a quick beer at the bar, and we did. Ended up getting into a fight with this guy who, I was like the shortest guy amongst all these monster football players and Mark Coleman, and the guy just like picks me, imagine that. So I was probably only about 180 pounds at the time because I was a lighter wrestler, and but we ended up getting into it a little bit, and then Mark and I, he was kind of inspired after watching me knock this guy into another world, and he, so then we were always talking about this UFC, and we're watching them. We're watching Don Fry and Tank Abbott, and we're like, oh my God, this would be amazing, but it's kind of scary because, you think, oh my God, these guys are like tough guys. And we're just wrestlers. We weren't really fighters, but wrestling is a fight in some fashion. And, but these guys are just animals out there. And you think, oh my God, then Dan Severn went in. And so it was one of those avenues we took. Mark went out to Arizona and trained with a different guy and ended up getting in the UFC. And then I moved to Minnesota here. I started training with Greg Nelson at the Academy. The Academy is one of the most famous, next to Pat Miletich, MMA schools since the beginning. I was actually Greg Nelson's first UFC fighter. But before that happened, I got into this and started training for a few weeks. And the guys that I was training with were getting ready for the hook and shoot tournament. And the hook and shoot is probably it used to be one of the most dangerous tournaments that there was, because you're really in a corner of a room, and in the corner you got like a bolt sticking out the wall that's padded up. You got a bolt sticking out of the ground that's padded up, right about the middle of the mat. So it wasn't like one of those safest environments type of deal. My training partner hurt his knee, and I had an opportunity to step up and get into the hook and shoot that was run by Jeff Osborne, another legendary name of the sport. He was earlier on MC for the UFC. So Jeff got me in through Greg Nelson, and I should say Greg Nelson got me in through Jeff Osborne, and my first fight was against Travis Fulton, which is one of the most respected former UFC fighters, most active fighters ever in the world. And in my first battle with Travis, he was like 23-5 or something like that. He was a very active fighter back then. Younger than me, but very tough. They called him the Iron Man for a reason, because he would fight literally every week.
Yeah,
okay.
Travis fought for peanuts. He
would fight anybody, any place, anytime for any money. Okay, and so he was a tough guy. There was many other names in that tournament, and so I then entered as a total no-name coming out of nowhere, just a wrestler. No one knew much of me, so my first fight with Travis was. They have it on SureDog as 57 minutes, but I'm telling you, I have the videotape. My brother, my brother who passed, he videotaped the whole thing, and it was an hour and 10 minutes.
Good grief.
No rounds, bare knuckles, headbutts, no mouthpiece, no cup. No, it was basically no rule. So I was on Travis for a long time, headbutting him and punching him in a long time. We scrambled quite a bit, came back to our feet once, came back to the ground. Eventually, there was a lot going on, and Travis was suffering a lot of headbutts. So eventually he tapped. My next fight was against a very large police officer out of New York that was a black belt in judo. And I ended up tangling with him for about 20 minutes till I broke his ribs through his grappling gi. And then in the finals, I fought a excellent wrestler from Iowa, Kaz Daniels.
Yeah.
Kaz a very good fighter, very well-rounded fighter and wrestler. We went at it for about 22 minutes or something like that, and he eventually tapped out the headbutts as well. So the belt behind me is a significance of that, is the result of that tournament that you'll probably never see in our lifetime again. Is a 8-man tournament where people fight 3 times in one day, let alone 3 times in 3 hours. So in 3 hours time, I fought for almost 2 hours.
You fought longer in one night than most guys fight in 2 years.
It's a significant belt. I've been offered a lot of money. A lot of fighters that run into financial situations have sold their memorabilia. The gloves hanging from the belt are from Rings Japan, where one of my best friends and the greatest pro wrestlers of all time, Animal with the Road Warriors, Joe Laurinaitis, and training partner, is in my corner with Pat Miletich. That was my fight out there, my first contract with Rings Japan with Yamamoto, where I broke Yamamoto's ribs also. And then, let's see. Just on the poster right there, with everything, all my trading cards that are available throughout the world. You can find them. They're kind of hard to get. I'm not one of the most popular fighters in the world, but I do have a trading card. Imagine that.
Well, listen, hey, dude, at one time, Brad, in the dark, you were one of the most popular fighters. I mean, you go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, you were just, think about the guy. When I was doing my research, you rattled off 7 big wins straight. That was your debut, 7 wins straight. Am I correct?
Actually, it was 11. They had that wrong, too. I was 11-0 when I went in my first UFC. And I suffered my first loss to Trey Tellerman while I was actually winning the bout. Trey, great guy, great camp, came out, and, he sucked it up, caught me, and he won. And honorably he caught me by an armbar, yeah. And Trey Tellerman, and Guy Metzger, who you just had on your show as well, are from the same camp. I periodically reach out to these guys, say hi to them because we're on social media together, and very, very respectable gentlemen. Really, really are.
I would love to have Trey on. Trey was another guy like yourself that has fought a who's who of competition. I mean, and he always went out on his shield, man. He was in knockdown dragouts with Pedro Hizzo, Tim Sylvia, Vitor Belfort, you name it, man.
And don't forget Vitor Belfort.
Love Vitor Belfort. Yeah, big Vitor fan. He was another guy that I gravitated towards when I was a teenager in high school. When made my parents buy me a punching bag because of the Sure Dog highlight videos of you guys. I would emulate those out on my punching bag. But Brad, you answered one of my first questions, which was who you trained with, and it sounds like you spent a lot of time with Mark Coleman and Kevin Randall at the Hammer House up in Columbus.
Actually, I didn't train with them in my MMA career. I trained with Greg Nelson, who had taught me my jiu-jitsu and my boxing. A little bit with Rich Giacchetti out of Cleveland, Ohio, who, of course, was Mike Tyson's trainer. And Pat Miletich, which, of course, the trainer of champions, along with Greg Nelson. Those two guys, you get the influence of those two gentlemen. You better close your mouth and listen because you're going to learn, and when I would go down to Pat's camp, it would be, you'd have several different guys in the room. I'd go down there. And of course, from Greg Nelson's was Sean Shirk and Dave Monet. So we'd all go down there together. So it'd be me, Sean Shirk, Dave Monet, Matt Hughes, Jens Pollard, Jeremy Horn, Tim Silva walked in the room. Robbie Lawler in his earlier days when he first walked in when he was just a teenager. You have Rich Franklin, Mark Coleman, and Kevin Randall would come across every now and then too. So every now and then you could have anywhere from 10 to 12 world champions in that one room training against each other. And I tell you what, that we were called Team Extreme, which was under the management of Monty Cox. And of course, Pat Miletich, but yeah, it was a very, very tough workout weekend when you go down there. Yeah.
And what's crazy, you brought up Dave Monet. I've been reaching out to a lot of guys, and thank God you accepted. I've had a lot of guys that accepted, but Dave Monet was he was a middleweight champion, one of the first middleweight champions.
He was,
and he had him and Phil Baroni scrap. But I always was a fan of Dave Monet. I felt like he should have fought longer. I thought he had a good toolkit. I was a pretty big fan of Monet back in the day.
Dave got Lyme disease and was really down for it was very dangerous for his health for a while there. And but Dave is certainly he's the warrior. Dave Monet has always been a warrior. All these guys that I mentioned have been, it's just been. It takes me a while to sometimes think back to remember these times because I've focused so much on just moving forward. And but when I think about these times, it brings back a lot of smiles and some funny times and some crazy times, of course. But the kind of people we were back then and who's who now. And I look at like Matt Hughes and the trauma he's gone through, and I see him living his life very happy with the hand he's been dealt. And Mark Coleman turning his life around, and praise God that Kevin Randleman's found heaven, things like this. But it's just, you think at all these people that I got a chance to train with. And Jeremy Horn was absolutely one of the greatest fighters of all time. And sometimes in the UFC, you kind of get overshadowed by some of the bigger names that are a little bit more, flamboyant, so, and that's okay. We've all played a certain role in growing the sport, Yeah.
Jeremy Horn is another guy that was like Travis Fulton. He's fought a million fights and fought a who's who of competition. And I'm looking forward to having Jeremy on. I think we're actually going to shoot for next Thursday. So that'll be a fun time. I get to do some homework there, and hopefully I don't fail like I've already failed tonight. But I'm so excited that I've got on here with you, and you've righted a lot of the wrongs on the internet. You've straightened out some of the sources that I was at. But, you look at your list of opponents, Brad, Trey Telligman, Dan Severn, Babalu Sabra, Valentin Overeem, Steve Judson. Those are some very, very tough guys along with yourself. So, you never had an easy night in the cage or the ring.
The nights that I had an easy night were the nights that I took. It was funny because I was also pro wrestling. So the nights that I was, like I was training for pro wrestling, and I was supposed to be handed an easy fight because I was not in fight shape. And these easy fights, well, they came to win, and I came to pro wrestle. And so I have a lot of losses based on poor judgment on my part, on not preparing properly. So, and I accept that. It's part of the role of your, being self-employed as a body. Your body's your business, and this is what you do. Is you accept the wins and the losses, but you should never turn down an opportunity, I believe.
And Brad, I did MMA and boxing in my 20s. When I got 30, I decided to go to pro wrestling myself. Had a blast with it. But let me ask you something, because this was the case with me. Did you suffer more injuries in pro wrestling than you did mixed martial arts?
I did. I certainly did. Yeah.
I did too, man.
Man, I did. Because you have some people that, aren't the greatest athletes that get in it.
Yeah.
And so when your life is in their hands, and they're not the most balanced, skilled person, and you end up hurt, and they're not strong or in shape. I blew my knee out about a week and a half before I fought down in Indianapolis and one of Monty Cox's shows. I blew my knee out in 8 seconds, and it had a partial tour of my patella tendon. And I'm like, oh my gosh! But I didn't know that. I just knew my knee was sore from this big guy doing a front snapmare. He didn't jump over me; he jumped up and then on top of me and overextended my knee. And I knew it was injured from the get-go. But I took on this fight, and in the first 8 seconds that I was supposed to not punch this guy and only wrestle him because he was afraid to fight me, I blew my knee out. So, but it is what it is, man. We have to accept the good with the bad,
I'll tell you what. Let's transition a little bit here. You said Animal Joe Laurinaitis, one of your good friends. I actually reached out to Kim, his widow, and was talking to her about maybe coming on and doing kind of like a little tribute show for Joe. How did you get up with him? Because I'm a massive. The guys from Minnesota are some of the toughest human beings on the planet. Ravishing Rick Rude is like my hero.
I knew Rick too.
I got into professional wrestling because of Rick Rude, and I've reached out, become friends with his sisters and stuff, and I've sort of started learning a little bit about his life. You had Kurt Hennig, the Road Warriors. Nikita Koloff. All these guys from Minnesota are just they're salty, tough dudes.
Yeah, it was a hotbed for pro wrestling here a long time ago. I was I got the call for my first UFC in 1997, and I started asking who is the baddest trainer in the cities here, and I was still kind of new in Minnesota. And they said go to Jim Younger and Chris Bongiovanni at the gym in Plymouth, Minnesota. Chris Bongiovanni ended up placing 7th in Miss Olympia, and Jim Younger, of course, trained all these pro wrestlers that are and a lot of the Vikings. So when I walked in there, I'm looking around seeing all these ginormous guys, okay, and they're big guys, and probably minimum 300 pounds, 6'5" and up, okay. And Joe is probably one of the shortest at 6'2", 320 pounds, and he was just a massive, massive guy. And so I'm looking around watching these guys, and so I got Jim and Chris Bongiovanni training me, and my lowest rep set was 100 reps, and they were killing me. And they were killing me. And so at the end, there was this big juice bar in the middle of the gym, and Jimmy would make everybody shakes at the end, and protein shake at the end of your workout. And so I'd be sitting there, and the pro wrestlers would usually be leaving before I'm done my workout. But this particular time, I was sitting there just wasted, absolutely fried. And Kurt Hennig comes up to me and goes, "Oh, you're getting ready for the UFC, kid, da-da-da." Yeah, yes, sir, yeah, and I thought these guys were Vikings. I didn't know much about pro wrestling. I'm from Ohio. We don't have pro wrestling. We had, not big in pro wrestling in Ohio back then. It was the amateur wrestling. So, I'm seeing all these guys, and they go, "Hey, you ever think about doing pro wrestling?" I go, "I don't do that fake stuff." So anyway, Jesse Ventura was there. It was, John the Barbarian, Barry Darcel, Laurinaitis. Who else? He had, of course, Rick Rude, Kurt Hennig, Mike Enos. I mean, so I'm around all these huge guys that are very well known. I had no idea who they were. I felt stupid. So after getting to know these guys, I started hanging out with them and training with them. And so I got to know Joe very well. We became, Christian brothers together and doing things. He kind of kept me away from some of the bad things in the industry, and which was nice. And it's tragic what happened to him. And I know his son James. I mean, not as well as I would like to have. They left a long time ago and moved to St. Louis after he was drafted. And but yeah, I knew his wife Julie is her name. So. I don't know.
Like you said, that was a tragedy. We lost both the Road Warriors. It's crazy. Paul Ellering is still still around. Precious Paul is.
Yeah, he's a dog sledder. He's big into dogs. Yeah.
I'm so glad we got into that, man. Like I said, I'm a pro wrestler also, and I had read that you've done some pro wrestling, and it's just real cool to see these guys. Before Brock Lesnar. Ken Shamrock actually was a pro wrestler before he got into Pancrase, and he had a spat with the Nasty Boys. I had recently read and listened to. But I mean, after you got through with your fighting career, I mean, what made you decide to hang up the gloves and transition into something else?
Well, I invented a product called the Combo Hitter that I was passionate about getting to market. I believed in this product, and I sold it to a company called Zebra Mats, who at the time was one of the largest MMA supply companies in the world. And Zebra took it in, and they also hired me as a part-time engineer to help them develop other products. So I took that money and opened up my juice bars inside the LA Fitnesses around Minnesota here with my daughter. And we grew those businesses up pretty well. And after about 3.5 years, Zebra Mats split off, where Jimmy Pedro left with some of the guys and started Fuji Mats. So the owner of Zebra Mats, who was Chuck Belansky, we had talked, and he couldn't afford to pay me what he owes me to. At the time, they were supposed to bring it to market because there was going to be no royalties. So it was either royalties or a flat-out fee. So he gave me the product back. So I developed this product, and I had to see it to market, and I was very obsessed with that. I sold all the juice bars and dove into the Combo Hitter production and the research and development in that right away. So it took me about 1.5 years of research and development, spending thousands of dollars, and finally got a finished product that I could serve up to the community and public that were going to be a solid product. And that took off and launched like crazy. They sell like hotcakes. I recently shut the manufacturing down to run my campaign. And so I'm currently working still at a restaurant. I run a restaurant called, you've heard of Arby's. I run my own Arby's. And so I do that quite a bit and still mentor people on the side, and prisoners and ex-cons and, alcoholics, people who want to change their life. And so got into all that stuff, and the company grew out of my garage, the manufacturing business, right? So what I want to do is take it to that next level and maybe start my own franchise with a gym with my own boxing products. We opened 2 gyms up, and it was absolutely fantastic. We're doing well. Gyms are packed. And then COVID hits in 2020, of course. So, again, this isn't what drove me into politics. It was just one of those, the universe talking to me kind of type of things I heard, And I closed my gyms down, went back into manufacturing a short time, and decided that, I'm just going to get a regular job and try to figure out a way. I loved helping people. I love training people. I help mentoring them. I help, help them with their nutrition, their mindset about, setting goals. And I kind of lost that. So I want to get back into that. So I decided to get, start getting back into the restaurant industry. And about a year ago, about a little over a year ago, I started investigating into the political ring. And right away knew that this was not for me, and I knew exactly why I had to do it. because this is, something that a lot of people, I can see why a lot of people don't want to do this. This is a public service that goes with no rewards. There's no trophy. There's no medal. There's no money. And you think that you watch these TV shows like, oh, you're going to open up your own campaign office. And you see on the movies, you got all these people in this office going, woo, 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 and that signs up everywhere like money's coming. There's nothing like that going on. And right now with the way things are, and I'm not about, saying that the Democrats are evil or Republicans are angels. Listen, I'm not a party person. I'm more independent, but I am under the Republican banner, basically because that was the best and easiest way for me to do this, to get into office and show that I believe that what's broken can be fixed. And I've been networking and meeting with some of the highest people here in Minnesota, and some of the people that are running for office that, believe the same thing I do. We just don't have enough like-minded people that are incumbents that can make a difference. And so, rather than being all, sitting at the bar or sitting with your friends and talking about it, which I hate talking about politics anyway, and who does, right? Who likes talking about politics? It's so controversial. I figured, why not step up and do something about it? So from fighting to a businessman to this, I just saw another door of opportunity for me to help people. I believe with my Christian spirit that it was a calling to me, that this is a way that, I can go in there and massively help people and show that this particular type of public service can be used for good and not just, taking taxpayers' money. So,
I'm not a major political guy myself, but I think, like you said, it's not about Democrat and Republican. We need to get back as a country as being one, and being together and everything. And it's just so much battling amongst each other, it feels like. And hopefully, I wish you luck on that, dude. I think it'll be awesome. And like you said, you love helping people. I kind of started my own gym to help kids.
I know.
Give them a place to train where it's not going to break them up. And anytime they need a place to come, I've got that, where I took what I did in my training in my MMA days, strength training from putting on weight to become a professional wrestler. And I kind of just mixed it for these young athletes around here. And I've been very blessed. The good Lord has really given me he's given me a lot of the tools to be able to help these kids. And it's been a blessing to me. And like you said, to me, that's my high, is when I see a kid get a new PR, or I see a kid put together a combo that he's been working on or something. And that's, to me, that gets me on another level.
Now you have kids, right?
Yeah, I've got a 12-year-old kid. He's into boxing and a little bit of MMA, and he's a basketball. I mean, he's into everything. Football.
Yeah. My kids too. And but what made you decide to reach out to complete strangers or your friends' and say, hey, obviously you're training for free, right? I mean, you're doing it for free. Yeah. Why would you think that that's something that would be worth your time?
It was about like how when COVID happened, we were all quarantined, and I had my own. I lived at a different place, and I had my own. I had like a little room that had a weight bench in it, and I had some dumbbells. But I had a big carport. But in the wintertime, we really couldn't do much out there.
Yeah,
I had all kinds of equipment, punching bags, and a squat rack, power rack, and everything out there. So once we moved, I was blessed with a big garage down here, and I've been able to really put it together like I've always wanted. Still got some work to do and stuff, but really I wanted to give, like I said, kids a really reasonable place where it's not going to break them up. They can come work out, train here, and it's just it kind of took. It all started really, man, with a high school basketball coach wanting me to work some of his kids out.
Sure.
At a time when they couldn't get in a gym, I mean, everything was shut down here. And I was like, yeah, send them down my way. And then other kids started seeing it. And then kids that wanted to lose weight, some older ladies that wanted to get, I mean, it just really took off. And the reason I named it the Bears Den, I told Dan Severn this actually. My dad, every one of my friends used to say my dad looked like Dan Severn. But they didn't realize that Dan's nickname was the Beast. They'd always call him the Bear. And they'd always look at my dad and say, there's Dan the Bear.
Well, that's funny because my high school nickname was the Bear.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool, man. I mean, I can definitely see why. I mean, you are a mountain of a man. I mean, that was one thing that when you fought Steve Judson, man, when you came out there, I mean, it was like a rocket through that. I mean, there was not an ounce of fat on you. You were one muscle, and I'd never seen any. That is the most perfect punch that I have ever seen in boxing, mixed martial arts. And I've done a lot of research on combat sports since I've been a kid, but there is no punch that has landed that accurate. I mean, you fainted with a takedown, and when he dropped those hands, it was like a heat-seeking missile. I mean, when that happened, what was you thinking?
A lot of people would have gone in for the finish to make sure they'd have jumped on him, but I knew just from my boxing that I hit the bullseye, and there was no reason to add more. Insult to injury there, I suppose you want to say. I knew I won. There was no reason for me to jump on Steve and do any additional. You'll see that quite a bit where they get emotions. They get emotional and they don't control their emotions. And one of the things that I can and so that way I could keep calm on things. Don't let my emotions take over and make bad decisions based on emotion. So emotional intelligence is one of those things that I've worked on constantly with either listening to people or my own physical and mental actions when things happen. So when that happened, I knew I won right away. And Joel Gold, who was in my corner, now I think I came off of 2 losses, which was really bad because I started pro wrestling and they wanted me to beef up. So I went from 1997 looking kind of soft to these guys had me like every set was 100 reps. I mean, I ended up maxing out at 605 on the bench, curling 315. I mean, squatting 850. I mean, these guys had me like, it's called exhausting the muscle. And so I learned quite a bit of training on how to really max. And believe it or not, I only weighed 220 pounds in that fight.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I wasn't that heavy. From my 1997 to that fight, I only gained like 8 pounds. So if you look at the two, considerable amount, basically on my change of weight training. So, and I went lighter weight, higher reps, and then like every now and then I go to powerlifting, then back to high reps for exhausting the muscle, building that muscle endurance. So I knew I won the foul. John McCarthy jumped in between us, and I kind of walked away, and I was never a showboater. I was never one of those verbal guys, but pro wrestling brings it out of us, right? It does. So Joe Gold, who is the owner of Full Contact Fighter magazine, who this guy has pictures of all the most famous fighters in the world. You got to get a hold of this guy. It's called Full Contact Fighter magazine, and he was also my sponsor, and he wanted me to start doing some pro wrestling stuff. So I did a few things that kind of upset a few people. I'm like, oh shoot, I feel like a jerk, And so ever since then, I'm like, well, I won't do that again because I don't like to, the poor guy is already knocked out. I'm not going to, So, but it could have been either way because at that time Steve was undefeated. He was a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he was a very large guy, very big, strong guy. But fortunate it worked out the way it did. It's one of those great moments in life that you get to own for the rest of your life. Yeah.
Yes. And it's going to be on every UFC opening, intro, every best of knockout series. I mean, one of the, I mean, even the video game, when we were playing at high school late at night, you know, when it came on, that was one of the knockouts. It was you, Pedro Hizzo. I mean, I think BJ Penn was on there. It was just all the great stoppages and knockouts. But, you know, like I said, I can't thank you enough, Brad, for being on here. It has been an honor and a blessing to have you on here and talk. Before I let you go, I got a few just random questions to ask you. The first one would be, what's your favorite food?
Prime rib.
Ooh, any kind of barbecue sauce on it?
No. Prime rib, man.
What would you consider your favorite protein powder?
I use the GNC products. I really like the GNC products. The standard brand is always solid. I've been using that for years, and I still use it today. Actually, I just bought another 50-pound bag upstairs, so that is the one that I recommend to people. It's the one I use in all my juice bars. It's got a great flavor to it. They got a variety of flavors. It is a very high-quality product.
If a person, like if a kid wants to buy protein after his workouts, what would you suggest? What kind should they get started on?
Well, you know, there's a lot of powders out there, again, and there's your real high-end powder that basically is, you have your, think of it as liquor. You have your 151 weight liquor and you got your near beer, okay? This 151 sometimes isn't affordable to get. It's also not so much blended evenly like your middle of the road. The middle of the road is a continual consistency. And so what I tell my clients and people, in whether it's weight gain or weight loss, you know, it's your habits, routines, and rituals that get you to be become who you are. What you do, what you eat is who you are. And so if you stay consistent with the same product, as long as it's convenient, affordable, and it tastes good, you're going to get results. Now, of course, there are some really bad proteins out there. I mean, that they call Ensure protein, which it is not. That is not protein. It's toxic. There is muscle milk, which is 100% sugar. It's toxic. All those things that you see that are in the gas stations are just money-making things for the companies. You want to go to an actual vitamin company. I would say GNC or the Vitamin Shop, or you know, some of the local places that carry the name brand. And if you really want to be educated, walk up to the biggest guy in the gym and ask him what he does. They put their pants on the same way. You know, ask him what he does. And then if it works for him, it should work for you.
And, you know, we already talked about, I always ask, you know, the guys what would be their walkout song if they were to come out for one more match. You actually said Zach Williams, Chainbreaker, and I messed that one up earlier. So that was a good one, man. And the final one I want to ask you, Brad, is who's your favorite fighter when it comes down to it? Who inspired you to get going?
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, Mark Coleman and I, although we're estranged, we'll always be friends. He certainly was an influence in my life. I would say the one who Tank Abbott was one of my ultimate favorites because he just swing and hit, and it was just the amount of knockouts that man had for, you know, I mean, he wasn't really one of your world-class athletes. He was just your barroom brawler. I liked him. Beecher Belfer was amazing. Maury Smith, but there's one that stands above them all, and that's Randy Coulter.
I agree. My hero, dude.
Yeah. So Randy was, of course, you know, the natural. I've been with him on a couple cards. I've been with him in Japan. I've, you know, spent time with him when I was a fighter, got to train with him. I don't know if you saw my Facebook page today, but there's a picture with me, Randy Coulter, Henderson, and Dan Henderson, and then Rico Chiapparelli in Japan. Us training together, and those are the kind of guys that, you know, I try to look up to because they've done it, you know, and they didn't come out and, you know, and don't get me wrong, McGregor played his role too, but this is back when it was still an honorable sport. Yes. where the guys were cool to each other. We didn't have this throwing chairs at a bus and, coming halfway across the world to fight somebody because he said, she said, and, the drama that has caused today because of social media and this sport really is unnecessary for the greatest sport on the greatest stage on the planet. It just isn't necessary. I think it's been a kind of a sore spot when it comes to, should I watch a UFC? What drama am I going to hear tonight? And when they just make it a regular sport again, I think that's when it'll be fun to watch. And you can actually get people you can follow rather than champions changing every 6 weeks,
You hit the nail on the head, dude. I mean, that's exactly the way I feel. Number one, Randy Couture is my hero. He's what inspired me to go into MMA. The way he was honorable, held himself. I mean, overcame the odds, never trash talk. I mean, he had one. I mean, think about his trash talking. The time he held Tito Ortiz down and spanked him. I mean, that's as far as he ever went. And that was, that was perfect. But like you said, it's more gravitated towards money making. It's kind of weird, and I understand that. That's what they do. But it was the way you described how it used to be, when it was almost like a gladiator sport, when it was honorable amongst fighters, and you didn't have to have that. No, you could sell a fight on this dude being awesome, this guy being awesome.
I forgot about somebody who is probably one of the greatest champions of all time too. That's so underrated and so forgotten is Frank Shamrock. Ken, and again, I went after Ken when I was probably about 5-6 years ago when I was trying to fight again, and I wanted to see if he'd come out of retirement too, but they wouldn't let us old farts out of our diapers to fight. So, I mean, and Ken ignored me. He's a good guy. He's a gentleman. He certainly did a lot for the sport in bringing it to life with his charisma. Dan DeBeseverin, Hoist Gracie with his, quiet, methodical jiu-jitsu. Everybody had their role, and it was just an awesome time back then. And all those guys have all been an honor to meet and talk to, and it's just I was blessed to be part of all that.
I'll tell you what, Brad, I met Frank. This is crazy now. Listen how this worked out. This is just one of those moments when you look up and say, man, thank you, Lord. Me and my son went up to the Arnold Classic back in March. And I had a Bears Den shirt, which is and I'd carried it around in case I met one of the guys. I was going to get him to sign it, kind of hang up as a memento and stuff. So Randy Couture goes up, and Max is like, my little boy, he's like, hey, there's Randy Couture. And we sit there and watch him. He does an interview. Frank Shamrock, who is another one of my heroes, comes up behind him, and he's talking with him. They walk off stage together, and I just like do that number, and I was like, care to take a picture? They come over with me and my kid, hold the Bears Den shirt. Me, Frank, Randy, and my kid take a picture together, and it's like it's hanging up down in my gym, man. It's the most, it's just one of those moments where you think back to when I'm a sophomore in high school, and I look up to these guys. Then I get in my 20s, and I'm like, I'm really going to pull the trigger and fight. Thank you, Randy, for inspiring me. And then it comes full circle. I've got my kid right here who's big into it also. So just one of those moments. But Brad, I can't thank you enough for being on here, man. If you guys tuned in right now, check out Brad Kohler's wars. He's fought the who's, had some brutal knockouts, beat people's ribs in, come out as one of the nicest guys you'll meet, also a professional wrestler, and then come out with the combo puncher, which is one of the coolest things you will ever see. I've got to try to get my hands on one of them for this place. Awesome.
I'll hook you up one. Don't worry, Adam.
Hey, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Wilde MMA and Adam, for having me on the show. Certainly was honored to be here. It's great talking about old times, and sometimes, I'm glad you got a hold of me quick instead of it takes me a little while to start remembering some of these memories. And I don't have Dame Bramage yet, but it's one of those things where I may have hit too many people in their fists with my face. But
that's a great way to put it, Brad. Brad, listen, do not be a stranger. Thank you for being on, and continue to do the Lord's work, my man. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Have a blessed night. Thank you.
You too, brother. Bye-bye.